winning blueprint presents.
In the lab room.
Welcome, you are in the lab room. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me. It's Friday, which means we have some unfinished business to attend to from Thursday. Thursday night football occurred last night with the New Orleans Saints traveling to Atlanta to take on the Falcons to handle a little bit of some unfinished family business. The Falcons, their only defeat of the season, coming to these New Orleans Saints just 2 weeks ago. And so the Falcons really wanted revenge. There was a lot going on leading up to this game. There was a lot of trash talking going on. Curtis Lofton, the former Atlanta Falcon linebacker, now New Orleans Saints and middle linebacker, had a lot to say after the game. Roddy White mentioned that they didn't beat us. We beat ourselves. We gave them that game. He didn't like that. He took offense to that statement and that comment. He was spouting off at the mouth was Curtis Lofton. He was, if you remember, the one that had the "this isn't a rivalry" comment, which the Falcons, it's always hard for the team that views it as a rivalry to hear the other team say, yeah, it's not a rivalry. You don't want to hear that. You know, that's like Duke not acknowledging, and this is college basketball I'm referring to, it's like Duke not acknowledging that Maryland is a rivalry game for them. You know, of course, Duke's main rival is North Carolina. There's no mistaking that. But yes, there is a little something there extra with Maryland, but Duke and their players and their program and their fans refuse to acknowledge the fact that Maryland is somewhat of a rivalry game for them. And so that drives the Maryland fans crazy. And that's the same thing that happened here with the Saints. You don't want to hear that it's not a rivalry if you're the Falcons. You look at them as your rival and it's not reciprocal. You don't appreciate that. And I knew last night was going to be a very emotional game for the Falcons. They felt like they have a lot to prove. It's a nationally televised game, a chance for the whole nation to see what the Falcons can do. They're probably one of the most disrespected, 11-1 teams I've ever seen in my life. I mean, they go out and they get it done just about every week, and yet there's always a but. But this, but that, but this, but that. There's never just credit given to these Atlanta Falcons. Yeah, they win a lot of close games. Who cares? That's the mark of a good team, winning the close games. Ask the bad teams what's the difference between them and the good teams in the league, and they'll tell you, we don't win close games. If there's a 3-point deficit in the fourth quarter, we're going to lose the game by 3 points. That's what happens to bad teams. When the game is close, chances are they're going to come out on the wrong side of the outcome. So don't talk to me about close games. They find ways to win, and that's why they're a good football team. And it always helps you in the long run when you can win close games. Because as we know in the playoffs, there are not going to be many blowouts. You might blow a team out here or there. But for the most part, everyone's good in the postseason. And so you have to bring your A++ game in the postseason to get wins. And it's going to be close. And you need to be able to know how to pull out close games. And this Falcons team has a degree in winning close games. They have a master's degree. It's not just an associate or a bachelor's. They have a master's degree in winning close games. That's what they do. And so they're a good football team. They proved it again on Thursday Night Football. Let's talk about the game a little bit. They set the tone with that first drive, did the Atlanta Falcons. They got the ball first, and it's not many times that I agree with taking the ball first. I don't agree with it, even though it worked to their advantage in this game. I don't agree with getting the ball first. I don't think there's anything really to gain from getting the ball first. But I will say, this first drive in this game had an impact on this game long term. I mean, they came out and they punched the New Orleans Saints in the mouth on that first drive. I mean, it was first drive was a thing of beauty. If you draw up 15 plays, that's what you want it to look like. Your first drive, you want it to look just like the Falcons' first drive did, where everything worked. The first play even had disaster written all over it. Matt Ryan drops back to throw, gets hit while he's trying to deliver the football to Tony Gonzalez. It comes out a little wobbly. It looks like the safety's going to pick it off. I don't recall if it was Roman Harper or if it was Malcolm Jenkins. It was one or the other. Either way, it looked like it was going to be picked up. I don't know how it didn't get picked up, but somehow Tony Gonzalez comes back to the football, makes a catch, gets 8 yards on the play, and that was, I guess, the omen of the night that let you know this was going to go in the Falcons' favor, because that pass probably should have been picked off. 8 times out of 10, that pass is picked off. But it didn't get picked off in this instance. They take the ball, they march it right down the field, and the one thing coming into this game we had already said was that they had been struggling running the football, had the Atlanta Falcons. What did they do on the first drive? Michael Turner explodes on them on his first drive. I mean, he busts off a beautiful 35-yard run or so. He gets them for another 10, 12, 15-yard run. He probably had about 40, 45 yards rushing on that drive. He caps it off with about a 2-yard touchdown to put the Falcons up 7-0. I mean, the drive couldn't have went any better than it did. I mean, everything worked to perfection for the Falcons on that drive. They go up 7-0. And Drew Brees, he struggled all game long. And that's what I said the Falcons had to do. And I said, if you remember, on the preview yesterday on this program, I said that I expected the Falcons to come out with more defensive intensity. That's what they did. They came out with more defensive intensity, and I said the team that played the best defense and did not turn it over was going to win this game. There you have it. So one thing I will say about Drew Brees, and I will give him credit, he is fearless in the pocket. He is a magician, and he is fearless in the pocket. Because there are times when I don't understand how it is he doesn't get sacked. I mean, you see the rush. It seems like the whole pocket is collapsing on him. And here he comes out the other side, sliding through the pocket. His pocket awareness is the best in the league. I'd have to say that he manipulates the pocket better than any other quarterback in the league. And he has to. We all know about the stature and the 6 foot and all that stuff and him having to be able to find throwing lanes. But he does an excellent job of sliding in the pocket. He has that phone booth pocket athleticism. I tell you what, there's probably no one better in the league in terms of moving within the pocket to create space and lanes to throw the football. Drew Brees is great at it, and he was great at it in this game. There was a number of plays where I said he's getting sacked on this play, and he found a way to not get sacked, and not only not get sacked, but make a play, extend it, find an open receiver. He was magnificent in stretches last night, but one thing people fail to realize with Drew Brees, and yes, he's a very good quarterback. I'm not going to sit here and try to convince you that he's not an elite quarterback, because he is. When he's on, there's no one more accurate than Drew Brees. I've seen this guy thread needles that I didn't know places that footballs could fit. So when he's on, he's one of the most deadly quarterbacks in terms of accuracy in the league. But don't forget that Drew Brees doesn't mind turning the football over. And I'm not talking about fumbles. I'm talking about interceptions. Drew Brees doesn't mind throwing you the football. If you get him off of his spot, that same fearlessness that I talked about in the pocket, it can be a detriment, because when you're a quarterback that finds ways to get rid of the football, the play's never over in your mind. So if someone's draped all over you and you still feel like you can get rid of the football, you're going to do so. And sometimes that can be to a fault. And that's Drew Brees. Drew Brees is a guy that if you get off of his spot, you can force him into some inaccurate throws. He can't see everything. He's 6 foot. And so that does play a part in it as well. You start getting big 6'6" guys around him, a lot of hands, it's a lot of garbage around him. It's hard for him to see. And sometimes it looks like a guy's open, but he can't see that safety or that corner that's maybe 1 or 2 yards trailing behind the play, that he thinks this guy's wide open. He lets it go, and all of a sudden that safety, that linebacker, or that cornerback comes out of nowhere and picks it up. He can't see all of that. That a 6'5" or a 6'4" or a 6'6" quarterback might see. And so, yeah, there's some issues there, but no. He's still a great quarterback. He's still an elite quarterback, but he will turn it over. Let's not forget, just a few years ago, and he might have been injured. I don't care. I don't make excuses for guys. If you're injured, come out of the game. He played that season. He turned it over about 22 times. He will throw interceptions, is what I'm trying to say. And last night, he was in the interception zone. I mean, he was finding ways to throw interceptions. He had that bad pick on that drive in the end zone where he just threw it up for grabs in double coverage. It was picked off. He had another pick that led directly to 3 points for the Falcons early in the second quarter. Yeah, he threw 5 picks in this game. 5 picks in this game. That's one thing Drew Brees normally doesn't do. He'll throw you 1, 2, maybe 3 picks. He doesn't usually throw 5 picks, but he threw 5 in this game. But look, 5 picks aside, I think the turning point in this game was not getting any points before the half. I mean, you can't get in that situation and not get points. Now, in his defense, dumping it off to Darren Sproles there, I know what the logic was. I thought that Michael Irvin at the halftime show of this game made a great point. I thought it was a very valid point, and I think that is exactly what the thought process was of Drew Brees when he made that pass, which was Darren Sproles is a jitterbug. He's a guy that once he gets the ball in his hands, he can make things happen. How many times have we seen Darren Sproles take a 1 or a 2-yard pass and turn it into a 54-yard touchdown? Or a 1 or 2-yard pass, make 3 guys miss, and score the best 6-yard touchdown you've ever seen in your life. We've seen this from Darren Sproles before. So I'm thinking what Drew Brees was thinking and what Michael Irvin said, which I think was a great point, was that he dumped it off with the hopes that Darren Sproles could make something happen. And he's done it many a times before. Drew Brees trusts him, and he knows, hey, if I just give him a chance, Darren might be able to pop this thing and get in the end zone. And I think that's what Drew Brees was thinking. Because if that's not what he was thinking, then he wasn't thinking at all. Because you got to get points there. And if that wasn't his thought process, then that ball should have been chucked into the 3rd row in the back of the end zone. But nonetheless, they didn't get any points there, and I thought that really hurt because they had momentum. They had just scored a touchdown the previous drive before that. You get a field goal there, it's now a 10-17 game. You get the ball after halftime. You go down and you get any points after halftime. It's a whole new ball game, especially if you tie it up with the touchdown. But instead, and remember, in that second half, that first drive, they took the ball right down the field, got in the red zone, had to settle for a field goal. It's a different game if that field goal is already on the board and now you're looking to get 7 to tie the game up. But nonetheless, you can't turn it over 5 times on the road and expect to win. And I had already said the team that turned it over the least amount of times and played the best defense was going to win this game. And what do you know? The Atlanta Falcons forced 5 Drew Brees interceptions, did not turn it over themselves. Michael Turner did have the 1 fumble, but for the most part, they took care of the football. They forced turnovers, and they played with the defensive intensity that I knew they would come out with, and they got the win. 23-13 over the New Orleans Saints. So now the Falcons go to 11-1 on the season. The Saints are 5-7, and they're done. They're done in the NFC. They're not going to make the playoffs because, again, like I said, in the NFC, you need to have at least 9 wins. And no, they're not mathematically eliminated, but they needed that game last night. I had already said they need this game. You know, you don't fight to scratch and claw to get back to 500 just to drop 2 straight and go to 5-7, which is exactly what they did. And they played some good teams. Let's not act like they were playing the Kansas City Chiefs, which they did lose to this season, but let's not act like they were playing the Kansas City Chiefs, Jacksonville Jaguars, and teams like that. They played the San Francisco 49ers and the Atlanta Falcons in 2 consecutive weeks. And so, yeah, that's what happens when you play good teams and you're not as good as those teams. You lose. And that's what happened to the Saints. They're 5-7 and they're done. They're not going to run off 4 straight. And even if they did, chances are they're going to lose the tiebreaker because they've lost so many games within the NFC that you have to pay for that. You know, if you're going to lose games, lose them to AFC teams. You don't lose them to NFC teams, and they've lost to their fair share of NFC teams this year. And so I can't see them finishing at 9-7 and getting in and winning tiebreakers and things of that nature, even if they were to run off 4 straight, which I don't see them doing anyway, but even if they were to do that, they wouldn't win tiebreakers. I mean, you look at it, if the Redskins finish 9-7, and so do the Saints, which is the best the Saints can finish at this point, the Redskins beat them head-to-head, so they wouldn't win the tiebreaker. It's just things like that you have to take into consideration. This Saints team is done. Just know that. They're finished. So that was the Thursday night wrap-up. Let's get into the Sunday slate of games because we're getting down to the nitty-gritty now. Everyone's playing every week. There's no more bye weeks. Everyone has 5 games remaining. Of course, the 2 teams that just played on Thursday Night Football have 4 remaining. But coming into this week, everyone had 5 games remaining. And this is it. You know, you're coming down home stretch now. You can see the finish line. Now you have to take that last bit of energy you have, that last burst, that last second win that you might have, time to use it. There's no time to hold on to it now. You got to sprint for the finish line because everyone's going for the same prize that you are, a trip to the playoffs. And so There's tickets dangling in front of you, but there's only 6. And so the first 6 to pass the finish line are getting tickets to the dance. Everyone else is going home. Good season. Hope you had fun. Now you have to go home. So it's a sprint now. 5 games left. The finish line is right ahead of you. What do you have left in the tank? And so this week starts that 5-game stretch, that 5-game sprint to the finish line. So let's get into the Sunday slate of games and see who are matching up against who and what games have playoff implications and who will be able to come out on top and get the W. So the first game up on the Sunday slate is the Jacksonville Jaguars traveling to Orchard Park to take on the Buffalo Bills. This game has absolutely 0 playoff implications. However, I'm starting to be enamored with this Jacksonville Jaguars team just because Chad Henne has intrigued me. Now, I told you I'm sipping the Jacksonville Jaguars Kool-Aid very, very, very slowly. Yet, nonetheless, I'm still drinking it. You can sip all you want, but I'm still drinking it. So, I got a little thing for the Jaguars now because I thought they were one of the worst teams in the league. I thought them and Kansas City were 1A and 1B in terms of the worst teams in the league. But a quarterback change a couple weeks ago, a couple of good showings later, I've changed my tone now. I don't think they're one of the worst teams in the league. I think they have more talent than we give them credit for. And maybe they just needed an infusion of good play at the quarterback position. Because as we all know, you don't have a quarterback, you don't have a chance in the National Football League. So I'm keeping my eye on these Jacksonville Jaguars. They're going to Buffalo. This is an ugly game. Not going to sit here and talk a lot about it because in the grand scheme of things, this game means absolutely nothing other than a win or a loss on my sheet. And this is a big one because this could go either way. I don't like picking teams on the road that aren't good. And these Jacksonville Jaguars, make no mistake about it, I've just talked about how I might have a bit of affection for them in terms of watching them down the stretch because I want to see what this Chad Henne experiment yields. But nonetheless, they're still a bad football team. Don't get it misconstrued. I'm not saying they're a good team. They're just better than I thought they were. Now, I don't like picking bad teams on the road, but Buffalo really stinks. They really stink. And Stevie Johnson came out. The PR guys had to really put some duct tape on his mouth because he's saying what he feels, which is we should let our quarterback call the plays. Because when our offensive coordinator and our head coach, who is the same guy, Chan Gailey, gets involved, we stop scoring points. And this Bills team, as we all know, have struggled to score points for about the last month and a half. They don't score points. They're allergic to scoring points. Them and the Kansas City Chiefs are both allergic to scoring points. They don't like it. When they start scoring points, they get sick. And they start getting bumps and they break out in hives and they start throwing up. So they just don't. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen to this Buffalo Bills team again because I like this Jacksonville Jaguars defense. They're not a really good defense, but what they are is a bend but don't break defense. They bend and they bend and they bend. And of late, what's happened is they've been bending, but they haven't had to break because the offense has actually been sustaining drives and scoring points. When Blaine Gabbert was at the helm, they would actually bend, and then it would snap right in half because you can only bend it for so long before that elastic just bends and it snaps. You can't turn it over. You can't keep going 3 and out. Can't keep putting the defense on the field and expect them to hold up. But now with Chad Henne out there, they're actually, scoring points. They're sustaining drives. They're doing things to help this defense out. And I think in turn, this defense is going to be better. And I think they're going to be good enough to slow down and probably grind these Bills to a halt because the Bills don't do a lot on offense anyway. And the Bills have been playing better defense of late, but doesn't matter. If you can't score points in the National Football League, you won't win games. And so I'm going with Jacksonville in this game. Don't ask me why, because I don't know why. Stop asking. I'm just picking Jacksonville 20-16 to get it done on the road in Buffalo. These are one of those picks where come Monday morning, I could be telling you that I lost 4 games and this is one of them. But if I go 14-2 or 15-1, it'll be because of games like this that I was on the right side of or the left side of. So this is going to be a pivotal game in terms of wins and losses for the L.A.B. But I feel good about Jacksonville. The next game up on the slate is the Texans traveling to Tennessee to take on the Titans. I don't like the way the Houston Texans have been playing defense lately. I don't like it, not one bit. And so you take a 10-1 team and you look at the way they've been playing defense lately, giving up 36 points to Jacksonville, giving up, or 37 points to Jacksonville, giving up, whatever, 27 or 24, whatever, 30, whatever points they gave up to Detroit. A ton of yards in both games. I don't know what's going on with this Texans defense. I know that they're missing Brian Cushing. They haven't been the same since he got hurt against Green Bay. The linebacking corps is decimated right now. I mean, guys have shoulders, hamstrings, everything under the sun. I mean, Brooks Reed is injured. Brian Cushing is injured. Tim Dobbins is injured. Brady James is injured. We're talking about 4 guys that at some point were starting for this team. That their services are either up in the air or no longer available for this team moving forward. And so, what are they going to do at the linebacker position? I don't know, but they need to fix whatever's wrong with this defense and fix it fast. This isn't the time for you to start having leaks all over your defense. Teams have been having fun at the expense of this Texans defense. Good thing for them that they're playing a Tennessee Titans team that isn't that good on offense. And their quarterback is probably the main reason why they're not that good on offense. I don't really like, if you can't tell already, I really don't like Jake Locker all that much as a quarterback in the National Football League right now. He's a young guy. So I'm not going to say that he can't get it done. I just think that right now he's not ready. But what I will say is he's getting experience. And that's the best teaching tool there is, experience. So while he might not be playing that good of football right now, he's gaining experience for the future. Maybe next year, all this playing time that he's been able to get over the last 2 seasons will benefit him greatly, and he'll be able to start taking steps towards being a good quarterback. But right now, I don't like what he brings to the table. So the Texans should be able to get well on defense. If they can't get well on defense this week, they allow Chris Johnson to explode on them. And remember, last time these two teams met in Houston, Chris Johnson found himself. He hadn't done anything all season long, and then he dropped about 150 on this Texans defense. If they allow that to happen again, they could be in trouble once again. And you can't think that they're going to keep dodging bullets left and right. Pew, 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 pew. They're not going to keep dodging bullets. Okay? You keep giving up over 400, close to 500 total yards, and you keep giving up 27 and 30 points. You're going to lose eventually. And yeah, it's the Lions one week, it's the Jacksonville Jaguars one week, it's the Tennessee Titans one week. Soon it's not going to be those teams. Soon it's going to be the Patriots and the Ravens and the Steelers and the Broncos. Soon it's going to be good teams. Keep trying this if you like. You'll be sitting at home watching the rest of the playoffs because you're going to make it. But you might not be there for long if you keep up with your shenanigans. So they should win this game. I said all of that to say they can't keep playing bad on defense. Expect them to do what the Texans do. They have a template. They follow it to perfection every single week. They follow it to a T. Run the ball with Arian Foster, play action fake, go up top, get big plays, get chunks, score touchdowns. That's what they do. They score points off of the running game. They make you react to it. Then they go up top, play action fake. They do it better than anyone in the National Football League. It works. You know it's coming. You still can't stop it. They're going to do it to the Titans. The question is, will the defense show up and stop the Titans from being able to make this a ball game? I think they will. I said that last week. I was wrong. I'm going to keep saying that because they're not playing good teams. Maybe if they were playing a good team, I'd say, I don't know. But they're playing another bad team. They should be able to stop the Tech. They should be able to stop the Titans. This is family business. So it should be a close game. But I expect the Texans to do what it is they need to do to win this football game. Texans 26, Titans 16. So the Texans will leave this game 11-1. And the Titans will leave this game 4-8 on the season. All right, so next up on the slate is a rematch game between two teams in the same division. It's family business. And they gave us our only tie of the season. That's right, the San Francisco 49ers are traveling to St. Louis to take on the Rams. And this is the debut of Colin Kaepernick as the official starter of the San Francisco 49ers. So there's a lot of intrigue in this game, in a game that otherwise probably would be just a blip on the radar screen. But now this game has more intrigue than it has in probably the last 3 years because Everyone wants to see what Colin Kaepernick is going to do. All eyes are on Colin Kaepernick, the San Francisco 49ers, for the rest of this season. Because if this season doesn't go the way that everyone envisioned it going for the 49ers, oh, yes, there's going to be a lot of finger pointing and a lot of second guessing going on. And so this is going to be a fluid situation and a fluid storyline moving forward. The way this thing unfolds is something that we're going to be paying close attention to for the rest of the season. So I think he's going to be able to do well against this St. Louis defense. He's on the road. He's already shown that he can go on the road and make things happen. He went to a hostile environment like the Superdome and got it done. So I don't see why he can't go to St. Louis and get it done. Edwards Jones Dome or whatever it's called these days and get it done. He should be able to go to St. Louis and handle some family business and come out with the W. Now, the Rams played this team really good up in San Francisco not even 3 weeks ago. So we know that this Rams team isn't afraid of the 49ers. But we also know that the Rams aren't a good team. And maybe they just had a good Sunday. Maybe Danny Amendola coming back to the lineup for the first time in about 5 or 6 weeks was a big boost to this team. And they just showed up and they played good football. I don't know what it was. I don't expect them to do that again. They're not a good football team. The 49ers are. They have something to prove. And we're all on Colin watch. Now, we're on Kaepernick watch. So we're going to see what's going to happen with these San Francisco 49ers and Colin Kaepernick moving forward. So now he has to step up. There's no more talking. There's no more this and that. He doesn't have to look over his shoulder. Just go out and play good football. It's your job to keep. So I expect the 49ers to go to St. Louis, handle some family business, come out with a win, 23-13, and keep it moving. That win will put them at 9-2-1 on the season. Meanwhile, St. Louis Rams will drop to 4-7-1 on the season. Moving right along, the Arizona Cardinals are taking on the New York Jets. And I dubbed this my sole survivor of the week. This is a terrible pick in terms of forcing yourself to pick a team that you don't believe in whatsoever. But I believe in this game, however, that the Jets will beat the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals are an absolute train wreck if there has been one over the last month. Their quarterback situation is the worst. And there's some bad quarterback situations in the National Football League this season. The Chiefs don't have a quarterback. Neither do these Arizona Cardinals. The Jets don't have a quarterback. There's a lot of bad quarterback play on some teams in the National Football League. But the Arizona Cardinals trump them all. It's not even close. The quarterbacks of those teams that I just named, if the Cardinals had their quarterback, they'd probably be 6-5 right now. 7-4. But bad quarterback play will lose you football games quick, fast, and in a hurry. Faster than any other position on the field. You don't have a good quarterback. You don't have an average quarterback. If you don't have a quarterback that can do just the simplest of things, you don't have a shot. And the Cardinals don't have a quarterback that can do just the simplest of things. So they don't have a shot of winning this game. And that's why I have the Jets, a team that I have absolutely zero confidence in. I have them winning this game. Now, I'm running out of options, as you can see, for my survivor pool picks. And so, yeah, I have to go here. Now, I've still got some teams in my back pocket, but I don't like their matchups this week. So I have to go with the Jets team at home against a bad Cardinals team. And I think the Jets will win. I didn't pick this game because I just picked it out of a hat. I've been doing my homework. The Jets should be able to do several things in this game. One, they should be able to run the football. And it doesn't need to be a tremendous effort on the day running the football. They don't need to have 200 yards rushing. They don't need to have 150 yards rushing. They just need to be solid enough to keep the Cardinals off balance so that Mark Sanchez only has to throw it, 23 times, 26 times. If Mark Sanchez has to chuck it 34 times, they're going to lose this game. Because the more times he throws the ball, he's going to throw interceptions. Probably every 7 or 8, maybe 9 passing attempts for Mark Sanchez, you got to expect an interception to be coming shortly thereafter. So if he throws 9 passes, you're thinking to yourself, hey, the next 3 passes or so, he's probably going to throw a pick. And so you limit the amount of opportunities for him to throw picks when you limit the amount of times he has to throw the football. So if they can run the ball, limit the amount of times they ask Sanchez to make some, because this Cardinals team will pick him off. If he decides to make some errant throws as he normally does, they will pick him off. If the Jets can just limit the attempts that he has by running the football, controlling the clock, playing solid defense, because this Cardinal team, they don't like to score points either. They're one of these teams that they're not allergic to points, but they're not a good team. And their quarterback situation is a mess. So you should be able to get turnovers. I expect the Jets to win this game. It's not going to be a pretty game, not one that you probably want to watch. But, again, if I'd had a choice not to watch it, I wouldn't. But it's my job. It's what I do, so I will. Jets will win this game 23-13. They'll get their 5th win of the season, go to 5-7 on the season. Meanwhile, the Cardinals, who have lost 7 straight after starting the season 4-0. And I think we're going to say that every week now because it's amazing to start the season 4-0 and then just not win anymore. I don't know if I've ever seen anything like that before. To just start the season off like gangbusters, 4-0, you look like one of the better teams in the league, and then just stop winning. The faucet just absolutely gets shut off. There's no more wins coming your way. If they continue to lose, we'll say it every week because it's one of the most zaniest stats that you'll probably see from a National Football League team that starts the season out as hot as the Arizona Cardinals did. So let's see how long this losing streak keeps up. We'll keep an eye on this. We'll call it Cards Watch. And just to see how many games they lose because they could really finish this season 4-12. I mean, with their quarterback situation, that's a realistic possibility. I digress. Let's just move on. We're spending too much time on 2 bad teams. Next up on the slate of games, the New England Patriots are traveling to Miami to take on the Dolphins. This is their first meeting of the season. These 2 teams are in the same division. This is family business. And so this is their first matchup of the season. And just 3 weeks ago, this matchup looked like something that coming down the stretch was going to be games that decided this division. I mean, the Dolphins were right there. They were breathing down the necks, the New England Patriots. Everyone was 3-3. The other 2 teams in the division, the Jets and the Bills, took a step back, and the Dolphins and the Patriots took a step forward and went to 4-3. And I thought, this Dolphins team, they get it. They're clicking. They're not turning it over. They're playing smart football. They're on to something. These Patriots better watch out. And then the Patriots, they continue to ascend, and the Dolphins realize, and I think somebody just smacked the hell out of them, and they woke up and they said, wait a minute, we're 4-3? After 8 weeks of football? What are we doing? And they just started losing football games. They woke up and realized, we're not a good team. What are we doing? We're not supposed to be 4-3. We're not supposed to be over 500 this late in the season. And then they woke up and they started losing football games. So now, this game lost its luster. However, this Dolphins team, they're a team that you don't know what to expect from week to week. Again, they go home to Tennessee. They lose. They get blown out at home against the Titans. I mean, inexcusable loss at home when you're fighting for a playoff positioning, as they were at that point in the season. But that was a bad loss. So you're thinking, okay, yeah, this team isn't any good anymore. They're damaged goods at this point. They go on the road the next week to Buffalo. They lose again, and you're thinking, okay, yeah, that solidifies it. They're not good because Buffalo isn't good either. And that's family business on the road, Thursday night football. It's a tough environment. Yeah, I get all of that, but still, the Buffalo Bills aren't a good team. You should be able to beat them if you want to say that you're a good team. But you're not. But they went to 4-6 on the season, and you're thinking, yeah, they're done. They're done. And then they come home for Seattle. No way they beat the Seahawks. They couldn't beat the Bills. They couldn't beat the Titans. They're not beating the Seattle Seahawks. Get out of here with that. Yeah, they did. They beat the Seattle Seahawks at home, if you can believe that. So now they're 5-6. They're still hanging around. They're not done. They're not out of it. But they got the Patriots twice in the final 5 games. They've got some winnable games, but I don't see this Dolphins team being able to beat the New England Patriots. Just don't, because they don't do enough things well on a week-to-week basis. They're not consistent enough for me to think that they can go out and beat a good team like the New England Patriots. I mean, the Patriots, they don't play the best of defense, but they force turnovers, something that the Dolphins don't mind giving up. They take those turnovers, they score points off of it, and we all know Tom Brady is surgical with the football in his hands. How do you want it? You want him to carve you up with Wes Welker. He doesn't have Gronkowski, but that's okay. Now he has Hernandez back. So you want Hernandez? You want Wes Welker? Well, you want some Julian Edelman? I think he hurt himself last game too, so he might not be available. But another guy will just step in. It'll just be Brandon Lloyd now instead of Julian Edelman. It'll just be Danny Woodhead instead of Julian Edelman. The Patriots have weapons upon weapons upon weapons upon weapons. And the funny thing is if you take them off this Patriots team and put them somewhere else, they're not as good of a weapon as they are for the Patriots. Strange how that occurs, but nonetheless, they're going to get it done on the road, in the division, handle some family business against this Dolphins team. Patriots will win this game and all but wrap up the AFC East. They'll go to 9-3 on the season with a 30-20 win over these Dolphins. Dolphins will fall to 5-7 on the season. And look, I think they've overachieved. So whatever their record ends up being this season, whether it's 6-10, 7-9, they overachieved in my book. And they should pat themselves on the back because with the talent that they have or the lack thereof, for them to get 5 or 6 or 7 or whatever the final tally is for wins this season, they're building something. Joe Philbin is doing it the right way. I didn't agree with the benching of Reggie Bush a few weeks back when they got that mud hole stomped in them at home against the Titans. I didn't agree with that. I think that's the only button that he's pressed with the wrong button this season. But other than that, he's done a great job with this group. And they've got something going with Ryan Tannehill if he just doesn't turn it over. But they're not going to win this football game. 20-30, they will lose to the Patriots, drop to 5-7. Patriots will go to 9-3 on the season. Whoa, this next game is not for the faint of heart. I'll put out the disclaimer now. If you're not a fan of one of these two teams, be very, very cautious of this game. Because this is an ugly game. If not for Cam Newton being a participant in this game, I would tell you that this is Ugly Bowl Part 3. But I'm not going to do that because Cam Newton is a good enough player and a good enough watch that I will excuse him and his team from any Ugly Bowl talk. So, the Kansas City Chiefs are hosting the Carolina Panthers. And this game is not a good game. It's not a fun game. It's not a game that I really want to talk too much about. You got the 3-8 Panthers traveling to the 1-10 Kansas City Chiefs. This game is ugly. The Chiefs are allergic to scoring points. They don't like it. They don't like the way it feels. They spaz out when they score points. They don't know how to act. They're going to score 3 field goals again like they always do. I'm giving them 9 in this game. That might be a little generous. Maybe they score 16. I don't know. The Panthers aren't a good team either, so you can't expect them to just shut this Kansas City Chiefs offense down as everyone else has been able to do. But the Panthers aren't, the little sisters of the poor either on defense. They'll be able to, stymie the Kansas City Chiefs on offense, limit them to next to nothing, get the win 19-9. It's going to be an ugly game. One of these games that when you're watching your games on Sunday and they do the halftime report, they don't even give you any visuals of this game. They just give you the score and move on. That's one of those games. And it'll be 9-6 at halftime, by the way. So, yeah, this game's going to be ugly, but the Panthers should win. They're the better team. They should be able to win the game 19-9, go to 4-8 on the season. Meanwhile, these Chiefs will drop to 1-11 on the season, and they're on a crash course. The first pick in the draft in 2013, and gosh, do they ever need it? I mean, they need it bad because they need a quarterback. Yeah, the Arizona Cardinals could use it, but the Chiefs need it worse because the Chiefs have talent right now. And if you just give them a quarterback that can play somewhat good, they can throw the ball more than 35 yards down the field in the air, they got a shot. So, we'll see what them losing yields them in the end. We move on to the next game on the slate. The Seattle Seahawks are traveling to Chicago to take on the Bears. Now, this game for the Seattle Seahawks means a lot because they're 6-5, and if the playoffs started right now, they'd be the last team in the NFC as the 6th seed. But This is potentially their last game of the regular season with their 2 starting corners. Richard Sherman and Brandon Browner are appealing their suspension, 4-game suspension, for Adderall use. And they're not going to beat this rap. When's the last time someone had a successful appeal of a suspension and was able to play? Maybe it's reduced to 2 games. I doubt it. They're going to probably be suspended for 4 games. So they're allowed to play in this game. The suspension will be upheld after this game's over with, and they'll probably be serving that 4-game suspension for the remainder of the season. So this is a big game for these Seattle Seahawks because right now they are in the playoffs, but this thing could turn around in a hurry without their starting cornerbacks. Because I feel like they're the cornerstones, no pun intended, of this defense, are those 2 corners. So if they take these guys out of the equation, they could be in trouble. But this hasn't been a good Seattle Seahawks team on the road. And if you've watched the division standings segment that I released yesterday, you'll see that their final 5 games isn't the hardest in the league. So they have a shot. Take the Bears out in those last 4 games. 3 of them are against divisional opponents, all at home. So yeah, they might struggle with the 49ers, might not be able to get that one. Maybe they are, because they haven't lost all season at home. So maybe they're able to beat all of those teams at home. Maybe they're not. But they should be able to beat the St. Louis Rams at home. They should be able to beat the Arizona Cardinals at home. But the key is, in the NFC, you need to get to 9 wins. You need to get to 9 just to be in the discussion. You need to get to 10 if you want to guarantee yourself to get in. They would have been able to get to 10, I think, relatively easily, relatively comfortable if they would have won that game against your Dolphins last week. They lost that game. Then they hear the news of the suspensions. All of a sudden now, not even 9 games seems that easy for this team, because I don't expect them to go on the road to beat Chicago. Do you? I doubt it. I doubt that they can go on the road against a Chicago Bears team that's very opportunistic, that forces turnovers. Of course, the Seahawks have a young quarterback in Russell Wilson, and he's due for a funky game because he's been playing outstanding the last month or so for these Seattle Seahawks. I mean, he's really not turning the football over. He's making good decisions. He's very accurate. His completion percentage is way up over 60. He's getting it done. And we're talking about a 2-to-1 ratio, touchdowns to interceptions. He's getting it done. 17 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. That's better than most veteran quarterbacks in the league. So he's getting it done. But you got to know, sooner or later, he's going to have one of those 1 touchdown, 2 or 3 interception games coming. This may be it. Even if he doesn't, I think the Bears are still a good enough team to do all the things that they need to do to win a game at home against a tough opponent, because this Seattle Seahawks team is no pushover. They're in the playoffs right now for a reason. It's because they're a solid team. They play solid defense. They haven't been playing the best of defense of late, but they're a pretty good defensive team. You know they can run the football. Last week was their worst rushing output of the season. That's rare for them, because it seemed like Marshawn Lynch goes over 100 yards every single week. Well, he wasn't even close last week. The Dolphins shut him down, and give credit to the Dolphins. Their run defense came to play. They were able to stop the rushing attack of the Seattle Seahawks, but it's rare. They give it to him 24, 25 times, and he usually responds with 120 yards rushing. So it's going to be imperative that the Bears stop Seattle from running the football like the Dolphins did a week ago. Force Russell Wilson to beat you. If he's able to do it, you tip your cap to him. But I don't think he will be able to, because this Bears team, and yes, this is a team the Bears have. Not just offense, not just defense, not just special team. This Bears team is pretty good at what they do, especially at home. Expect them to be able to get the win 24-17 over the Seattle Seahawks. Bears should move to 9-3 on the season. Meanwhile, the Seattle Seahawks will even out their record at 6-6, and now, without the services, potentially, of their 2 corners for the remaining 4 games. Going to be interesting to see how this Seattle Seahawks team fares down the stretch.